Aloha and welcome to another episode of what I'm starting to realize is a journal of feelings that I had from, I guess, the past 2 years of having to deal with or having to suppress thoughts and emotions and all of these things from when my husband was first sick to where I'm at now. Because there's a lot that's been going on, but there's also a lot that I haven't been able to express to anyone, mainly because sometimes it feels like I can't, whether it's because it makes them uncomfortable or because, you know, they're my children and I don't want to burden them with my feelings, even though I tell them to literally tell me everything. Anyway, another feeling I wanted to dive into is caring or the act of caring for someone. And I had to kind of look up the definition because for some reason on my own, I couldn't come up with what it means. Like to me, it just means to care. But I wanted to know a little deeper, like by definition, what does it mean? So the definition of care means to provide what is necessary for health, welfare, maintenance, and protection for someone or something, as in caring for the elderly. Or to feel concern or interest, uh, and to attach importance to something. So, by definition, care is both a physical action and an emotional one. Synonyms can be attention, concern, or worry. So, for me, care or the act of caring is synonymous with love and fear. Often, we, when we care for someone or something, the care stems from the love we feel for that person or thing. Like, let's say a potential love interest. A lot of times we don't even know we have a love type of feeling for that person, but we recognize that we care about them and what happens to them day to day. For example, as I mentioned previously, my husband used to work under me, like I was his boss at the movie theaters. And after we became friends, I knew I cared about him a lot. Like I cared a lot about him. And I would tell him all the time how much I cared about him. I I tell him things like, I care about our friendship, I care about you as a person. And honestly, I'd like to think he felt the same way. We'd call each other pretty much every moment we weren't physically with each other. We'd ask about each other's day, what we had planned, what we already did for the day. Just showing up for each other emotionally. And maybe that's the basis of caring for someone. Being there emotionally, even when, or especially when, you can't be there for them physically. So I kind of want to try to split this up into sections. And I want to start off with the physical aspect of care. A lot of times, the act of caring is mostly thought of as being given to the sick or disabled or even the undernourished. Or even when we have families. As humans, we feel the need to care for or provide for loved ones, like our children. Now, I have 3 children that I've birthed, but I also have 3 children that I was blessed with when I married my husband, all of whom I have tried to care for equally. The ones I birthed, I lived with. So I witnessed everything they went through, whether they were sick or hurt. I was right there with them to help them recover from it all. When my husband was sick, I did the same. But not much is talked about what happens to a person's mental capacity. Now, I can't speak for everyone, and I'm definitely not a therapist with years of research and study behind my opinion, but this is just my opinion as someone who has gone through the works. It's one thing to have to take care of my children because they're my children, but there's a reason why I couldn't be a stay at home mom for long. The amount of mental strength it takes to care for little monsters who eat, poop, pee, and question everything about life, it's a lot. But that's the job. That that's what you sign up for when you become a parent. That all of this comes with when you want these little poopy heads to even think. When I had to physically take care of my husband while he was undergoing treatment, and more so when he was nearing the end of his life. Like it it was hard on me mentally and physically during the pandemic when I had to stay home with my children. That was hard. Like I had 3 children at 3 different stages of life. And it was so hard to navigate through all of that and be stuck in our house. But that kind of care, I feel like, was probably easier than everything that I went through having to take care of my husband. When kind of at the beginning of things when I was taking care of him, it it took a lot out of me, like mentally, physically, emotionally, that I started going to therapy again because it was taking such a toll on my mental health. And sometimes I felt like I couldn't even breathe. I feel like I cried every day, like I was just walking through life on autopilot. But I would tell myself that that was the job that I took on when I promised my husband for better or worse in sickness or in health. So I did it. I took him to all his doctor's appointments. I would even bathe him because he struggled with that sometimes. I would have to force him to get up and take his medication because sometimes he'd tell me he's too tired to take them, or sometimes he'd try to argue with me, like, not right now, or I don't want to have to take all of these. And sometimes it would get loud. Sometimes it would even get physical. Like he would be screaming at me, I don't want to have to take all of these medications, but like, I didn't prescribe these to you. These are coming from the doctors trying to take care of you. And I'm just trying to make sure you take them. And it would get physical sometimes, like he would whack the container out of my hands. But that's what comes with having to take care of someone, especially someone who's going through serious treatment like chemotherapy. Sometimes you have to be the bad guy just to make sure they're being taken care of. Now, I don't say these things because I'm mad at having to take care of my husband. I loved my husband so much that, I was willing to lose my mind if I needed to so that I could take care of him. And I would have endured it for as long as it took. But I say these things because I just wanted to highlight the fact that having to take care of someone who's terminally ill took a lot out of me mentally and emotionally, and that it's okay to say these things out loud. I think because of the society that we live in, people don't like people don't like it when you talk about the work that you have to do or the emotional roller coaster that you have to endure day in and day out when it comes to caring for someone. It's almost like you're supposed to just endure it. And because you're not the one who's actually going through the illness or the one who has the disability, it it feels like you just have to, like, suck it up and quiet about it. honestly, this all of that is probably why I even started this blog in the first place. Just to be able to let out all of my thoughts and feelings. Sometimes, maybe because of societal norms, it feels like I am not allowed to say it out loud. But I have these feelings, and I'm at a point in my life where I'm just going to say it. I've been holding on to these thoughts and feelings for 2 years, and honestly, it's a little cathartic to let it out. And it does help, especially because it still feels like I'm grieving. And I guess releasing that valve helps alleviate all of this buildup that I have inside. Anyway, what also happened was, my husband was starting to lose mobility. The more he had chemo treatments, the harder it was for him to get by on his own day to day. And so I'd end up having to carry him or hold him up just for him to be able to be upright. Because, my husband is a very social person and he likes to sit up and talk to people. And the way that my husband talks, it's not just with his mouth, he's talking with his whole body, and he has to be able to move and just make his whole story come to life with his own actions. And so sometimes I'd have to hold him up, or I'd have to sit with him so that he wouldn't stand up and hurt himself. But as the disease progressed, he had to, he was bedridden. And I had to be able to move him back and forth on the bed because, I still had to physically take care of him, bathe him, change his sheets, make sure he was comfortable. But I have to physically move him in order to do that. And it was a lot. My husband was a large man in comparison to myself. I'm only 5'4", 165 ish, but he was 5'10", 190 ish. So, I mean, if you can imagine how much physicality it took to have to move him, it was a lot. But thank goodness for the fact that I was training for the firefighter test at the time. So I was able to actually lift him. There was even a time where we were coming home from a doctor's appointment and he couldn't make it up the stairs into the house. I think we made it up about 5 steps and he started collapsing. And I kept trying to tell him, just hold on to me. I can get us up the stairs. Just hold on to me. But he got scared and he reached for the railing. So we both fell because I couldn't stabilize us with his whole body weight moving towards someplace that's not me. And it took a lot. It took a lot to get him up the rest of the stairs, but I got him up the stairs and I got him in the house, and then I was able to get him back on the bed. So, what I'm trying to say is that physical care can actually relate to, or can, uh, I guess they go hand in hand, physical care and emotional care. But all of that can take a toll on a person mentally, emotionally, and, eventually physically. It'll all weigh down. And to, I guess, to keep the ball rolling on the emotional part of it, the emotional and mental support, to me, when you care about someone or you want to show them that you care, A lot of it is being there to support someone emotionally. I think as human beings, we want everyone to have the answers for us when we're going through something heavy. We want others to just say the right thing that's going to fix it, or to just say that they care and are there for us. But that doesn't always happen. For me, I think that has to do with, again, being human. Sometimes we take offense when someone tries to say something they think is the right thing to say, or when when someone says something with the right intention, but it's not something we want to hear in the midst of everything we're feeling. And honestly, I think because of all that we have to take on when we are physically taking care of someone, our emotional needs are put on the back burner because we're tending to the emotional needs of the person we're taking care of. Again, so many things happening all at once. So, I guess as a caregiver for my husband, now that I look back at it, I put so much into taking care of him physically and emotionally. I just wanted someone to take care of me physically and emotionally. And at the beginning of all of it, my husband, we like made a pact with each other where he's like, if you take care of me and you help me with this, as soon as I'm good, when I'm cancer free, it's your turn. Everything's going to be about you. I'm going to take care of you. And I was like, cool, right on. I'll endure this, for one, because I love you, but two, also because that's what I want. I want the end goal of we're just going to take care of each other for the rest of our lives. But in the thick of it, while my husband was going through heavy treatment, there was a point in time where we had to stay in California for about 3 months. And it took a toll on my mental health. But again, I didn't feel like I could take care of my mental health because I was taking care of my husband's emotional health and physical health. But on top of taking a toll on my mental state, it also took a toll on our family as a whole, and like most especially on our relationship with each other. My husband required around the clock care pretty much because he had a hard time walking sometimes. A difficult time remembering things throughout the day. And his doctor attributed all of that to the chemo and radiation and all these new medications that they were trying just to make sure that they got all the cancer in that aggressive form of treatment. And because of all of that, that's why his doctor insisted that he have a caregiver stay with him while he stayed in California, and that it would be better or preferred if it were a family member so that they could support his emotional needs as well as his physical needs. And as much as I hated being away from my children for that amount of time, I decided to go all in and just be there for my husband. Keeping in mind, for better or for worse, sickness and in health. Like that's the promise that I made him all those years ago. But what I didn't realize was that in doing so, having to invest so much more of my mental and physical self to the care of my husband, I didn't realize it would be taking so much from me. There were days my husband would be so happy and joyous, and he'd want to go out and do so many things in the day. Like, I don't know what his fascination was with California, but he just wanted to see everything. He's like, I've never been in the mountains in California or something like that. So I made the big mistake of looking for mountains, and we ended up driving to Big Bear Lake, which was horrendous. That was a super bad idea because first of which, I don't like driving in the States. Everybody drives so crazy. So I had all of that anxiety being on the freeways, and then even worse anxiety driving up a mountain like 7,000 feet at high speeds because I'm driving the speed limit, but everybody else is trying to fly around me. And the roads are kind of narrow. They go to the edge of the mountain. So I'm freaking out. But I'm trying to keep in mind this is for my husband. He wants to see these things, and I want to be able to give it to him. So we did that. And by the time we came back down, I had to tell him, like, I gotta lie down. I have a headache. This is too much. And then another thing is he said he's never been to a pier before. So again, tried to look up like what's the most popular pier in Southern California, and it was Santa Monica. I was like, okay, I know there's stuff to do there, so take him there. And I took him, and he had the time of his life, but I don't like germs, and I don't like gross things. In Santa Monica, so, no offense, but compared to Hawaii, it's gross. They're that I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not. It's nothing compared to the beaches we have at home. But again, it was for my husband, and the doctor was saying, it's a good idea, take him out in nature, let him see these things. Okay, cool. We're still taking care of him. We're just going to do the emotional side. But it didn't help me. Ugh. So, there were also days where he'd be feeling too overwhelmed by everything going on, like his treatments, or if we had just done something the day before, he is exhausted. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He doesn't want to do anything. And it kind of felt like every other day I had to talk him off the ledge. Like everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Meanwhile, in my own head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. I'm so tired. I just want things to go okay. Even I'll take a meh at this point because everything was so many things were happening all at once, and I'm 3,000 miles away from my other children, which I haven't been away from them longer than like 2 weeks, maybe even less than that. I think the longest I was away from them was like 10 days. And having to be away from them for 3 months was a lot. But, again, put myself on the back burner, trying to do this for my husband, trying to be there for him. But yeah, having to talk myself off a ledge quietly while I outwardly talk my husband off a ledge in a sense. It was exhausting. And I mean it's exhausting anytime you have to do these emotional gymnastics. But I would have to have times where I stop and think about it and remind myself that my husband was going through a lot. And I can't even imagine having to go through all of this emotional things on top of having to go through all these physical things because I've never been through cancer treatments before. But I'm experiencing it on the outside with my husband. He's experiencing it internally, and I'm experiencing it through what I can see through him. But on the flip side to that, I'd also remind him, like, hey, look, I'm here with you. I'm going through these things, these experiences with you. Don't take it out on me. Like, I understand you're going through a lot, but I'm here. Don't take your heavy things out on me. To begin with, I mean, it's not an excuse, but to begin with, my husband was never very good at handling a lot of emotions. Not even just heavy emotions. If it was just too many happening at once, it was too much for him. And in fact, in the beginning of our relationship, he told me how bad he was at dealing with emotions. Like, to the point, or so much so, that the heavy emotions that he was experiencing at one point was why he turned to living on the streets and away from his family, because it was too much going on in his house and with his family. He just couldn't deal with it. So he just didn't. That being said, I never let it be an excuse. No matter how much he'd say, well, I don't like dealing with this and I'm just going to go do this. Like, no, you don't get to use heavy emotions as an excuse to run away. You don't get to use all of these heavy emotions as a reason to. On the flip side, I would try to sometimes, if I could get myself to calm down, I would try to remind him, like, hey, we all go through things. We all have heavy emotions from time to time. And if you really care about someone and you love them, you do what it takes to nourish that love and care. And me personally, I loved my husband more than I ever thought I could love anyone, which is why I would tend to his emotional needs on top of his physical needs, because I knew his emotions were his biggest driver, the biggest thing that drove him to do things in his day-to-day life. So, during his treatments, when my husband would have to go through all of these things, I knew it was going to be rough for the two of us. I knew it was going to have to make me put on this new hat of not just being his wife, but being his full-time caregiver as well. I gave and I allowed myself to receive care from him also. But again, it was a lot, and I needed more emotional care. And, my husband did his best for what he could give, which wasn't much. And for everything that I was giving, it's like I wasn't getting anything back. And so sometimes it was harder and harder to be able to give back to him, because how are you supposed to give from an empty cup? You know what I mean? So I reached out. I reached out to family, and it's like I don't know, like I was a man overboard, and like I caused it. Like I caused myself to go overboard, and it was kind of like I was on my own. And not to talk down about my family, I love them, and I can understand that we're all adults now. Everybody has their own families. We have our own things going on. But honestly, it felt like I was doing everything by myself. Like I was getting myself through this hard time. Not too many were checking up on me. And to be honest, only like four people out of my ginormous family were checking on me. And I was sad. Like, I think that's the most depressed I've ever felt, because none of the four people that were continuously checking up on me were any of my siblings. And it hurt. But again, tried to remind myself that everybody has their own lives. My siblings are married, or even if they're not, they're single parents, they have kids. So I tried not to let it hurt too much, but it hurt. And then, I got myself to a point where I felt like I was okay until my husband finally passed. And then it went back to the same four people were the only ones checking in on me, and it hurt again. So, not to self-diagnose, but I think that's why I have an issue with opening up to people, because sometimes showing that I care or that I need care is looked down on, or people don't really understand the weight of everything that I'm carrying. So they just kind of like don't look in the direction of it. Like, if I don't see it, I don't need to deal with it, or that's above my pay grade, so I don't have anything to do with it, kind of thing. So again, it's hard not to have expectations, but I kind of did. I'm the youngest of my siblings, and being the youngest, I just expected everyone to drop everything and tend to me, which again, unrealistic. But I'm the youngest, and that's a conversation I had with my oldest brother. Like, he I will say he did try his best to be as supportive as he knew how to be, but I kind of had to tell him, like, it sucks. And he's like, I know it sucks, but you're strong and you're going to get through it. And I was like, okay, but I'm the youngest. Sometimes I just want to be the youngest. Like, so in my family, it kind of felt like every time any one of my siblings was going through something heavy, they would call me and I would try to help them through it. And so I guess as the youngest, I was hoping that the same could be done for me. Like, I come to you, or I let somebody in our family know that I'm struggling, I'm going through a lot. I just want somebody to care for me, to tend to me, to lift me up emotionally and help me through it. But the more I went through it, the more I realized that my expectations were, I think, what was hurting me the most is that I expected, when really you can't really expect anything from anybody, even if they're family. Like, having an expectation for somebody kind of opens you up to people having expectations for you, which I don't like. Me personally, I don't like when people hold me to certain expectations. So, had to go through the emotions, had to feel my feelings, and then realize that, I put that on them, and that wasn't fair to do that to them. But that being said, sometimes when you give care, you don't know. And to piggyback on that, sometimes people will show that they care, and then pull it back. Like almost like they tick that box, like, yeah, I was there, but then you said this, so I did that kind of thing, which kind of negates the whole giving care to somebody. Like, if I was going through something and I didn't think of them and their feelings while I was going through it, they would come at me. Like, when I was in California, my cousin called me and asked me how I was feeling, and then I told her, like, I just feel disconnected from my family because she was the closest person to me in relation wise that was calling me, besides my dad. My dad would call me like 3 or 4 times a week, but my cousin called me every day. And so when she asked me that, I was honest with her. I told her, I don't feel well. It feels like I'm cut off from my family, and it kind of feels like they don't care about me. And, her trying to be the level-headed one, because I couldn't do it. She was reminding me of what I already knew, that everybody's busy, everybody has their own things going. But then there was a family member that was like, that's not fair for you to say. You can't say that about it. You don't know what we're going through. You haven't asked us how we're doing. And in the midst of it, like, yeah, I haven't asked. But that's because I'm already going through so many things. I'm already carrying so many heavy things. I don't have the strength to put on other people's problems right now. Normally, yeah. Normally, I would be the one everybody comes to, and I'll carry your load with you. I'll help you. But I can't right now. And that's what hurt, was that it's like I couldn't rely on somebody else to help me through it. And again, I know I've said this in the last one, but my cousin Kelsey was so instrumental in helping me through everything day to day. Like, I'm sure it wasn't easy because she is a single mom herself, so she's very busy, but I am so grateful for her love and care during that whole season where it felt like I was going through it by myself. So, yeah, that was a rough time. But I guess that's what happens when there's expectations, unrealistic expectations. And as I'm going through it, I'm not in the middle of it anymore. I'm not in the midst of all that heavy stuff anymore. So I can kind of see from the outside looking in where I added to that. And I can see that now, but I couldn't then. So I guess it just takes some time to recover after you've gone through that whole heavy season of physical care and emotional care. Okay, sorry. Let me try to wrap this up before I start going on a blame train and say things I don't actually mean to say. What I want to say is care takes a lot out of a person. Physical care takes out physical energy, and emotional and mental care take out energy that can also affect us physically as well. That being said, we often try our best to care for others and more so care for them in the way we want to be cared for. And that's okay. It's okay to say that out loud. It's okay to say that sometimes it's exhausting, because it is. We're all human, and it's okay to feel all your feelings, especially when you're going through it. as long as you're not taking out your emotional frustration on anyone or, you know, being a butthole, I say feel your feelings. Express them with those who you're comfortable sharing them with. Do what you need to do. Be safe about it and